Yeah, thank you everyone for allowing the opportunity for me to come speak to you today. So I'll just start off a little bit with like my story, who I am, how long I've been doing this, all that type of stuff. Teacher was kind enough to forward some kind of questions, some talking points that I'll kind of go through about the ins and outs of being a health coach and a personal trainer. And then with the remaining time, I'd like to kind of go through like my kind of nutrition and exercise and sleep like philosophies and stuff like that. I just want to make this very clear that these are just the data that I've seen, my personal philosophies. These are not any specific recommendations to you. Like always check with your doctor, functional medicine practitioner, all that type of stuff. Anytime you have questions, like feel free to put up a hand. Like I don't want this to necessarily be like wait till the end or type of thing. I'll try to work it in as I think is pertinent. So my name is Tyler McIntyre. I'm a certified personal trainer. I have a few other certifications as a corrective exercise specialist and as a sports nutrition specialist. I kind of advertise myself as a health coach and a trainer. People kind of understand like what a personal trainer is. It doesn't require a lot of like additional explanation. But I think health coach, the way I kind of look at it is like health is not just one thing. There's just so much to it. Like I like to say like when clients come and see me, we're there to figure out like exercise programs and sets and reps and how to do proper form and all that type of stuff. But like a lot of the time, like the real like meat and potatoes of like what we're getting accomplished is the conversations that we're having in between sets. It's a very, very like personal environment where like people are sharing like super deep stuff, and it's really cool. Like I mean, I've had like people crying on my shoulders and that type of stuff. Like sometimes people will come in, we'll get 3 sets done, and we spend like the next 50 minutes just talking about like life and the relationships and what's going on at work and stuff like that. So to start off with, one of the questions. I've been doing this for 2 years. Prior to that, I have about 6 years experience managing different health food stores in the area. So I've been kind of really interested in health and nutrition for a really long time now. Coming from high school, one of my regrets is that we didn't have like a kinesiology class. We didn't have healthcare when I was in school. So I'm 32 now. Stopped with taking the mandatory science classes. I wish I had taken like biology and stuff like that, but I didn't. And then really right after high school, I really started to get into that. So I just like to point that out because I think there's a lot of pressure on youth right now to have everything figured out by the time you're like in grade 11, grade 12, or even shortly after that. I promise you, I have plenty of friends who still haven't figured it out, and I'm still evolving in what I want to do. Like I'm trying to move into more of a public speaking role because my goal is to impact the greatest amount of people that I can. And although I love like the interpersonal one-on-one stuff, and I think I always will, that's starting to shift for me. So just don't feel the pressure to have it like all figured out. Things can change. I've done tons of different jobs, construction for a long time, so there's plenty of time to get that figured out. Thought I did a lot of English classes in high school and stuff like that. Went to college for journalism, dropped out because I was super bored and I wasn't applying myself. That's something I think, I was just trying to get by, and that's kind of neither here nor there, but there's plenty of time for things to work out. So how to become a PT, and then also I'll kind of roll that in with like how to figure out if you want to become a personal trainer. Number one, the desire, I think, has to come from wanting to help people. It can definitely, there's a question about salary in there, it can definitely be like a lucrative business. Most personal trainers in the area are going to charge anywhere from $50 to $75 an hour to train someone. Now, the environment in which I do it is either out of my home, out of a local gym. It's more of a personal training studio, so it's called Whole Health Strength and Fitness. It's not a gym in the classical sense of like a membership-based thing, but it's just strictly one-on-one personal training or group classes. So I basically pay rent to be able to train someone out of that location. It's not what I would recommend doing right off the bat. You kind of would want to, I think, get the experience in your feet underneath you working at like a big box gym, because like clients are just coming through the door like crazy. You do not have to do like any marketing. They come to you. They get pushed to you from the management, receptionist, whatever. So you're not going to make as much money per client from that, but like that right off the bat should not be the goal. In fact, I don't think that should ever be the goal. You should if your primary focus is always on doing the best and helping people and giving 100% to your clients, word of mouth just spreads. Your ability as a trainer kind of speaks for itself. I've done literally zero advertising, and I would consider myself like pretty successful for having only done this for 2 years. I think a lot of trainers and maybe other like health experts are too focused on client acquisition and not client retention. They have this scarcity mentality rather than an abundance mentality. The way I look at it is there's 7.5 billion people in the world, and frankly most of them need help. If I mentioned to my mom like, hey, I lost a client this week, and she's like, oh no, like is everything okay? I'm like, dude, don't worry, like 'cause someone called that same day to come in, or getting pretty close to like needing a waiting list at this point. But so I would start in a big box gym just to get that experience. Now, in saying that, I have learned way more on the job and am still continuously learning day to day, way more than I did for my certifications. So like I said, I have 3 certifications, read hundreds of books, thousands of hours of podcasts, and that I think a little bit came from a little bit of imposter syndrome or unconfidence in myself, and I just wanted to make sure like I knew like everything before going into it, because I didn't want a client to ask a question and not have the answer. But the truth is that no one has the answer to everything, and I think it's really important, especially in the health and fitness and nutrition industry, to be able to confidently say, I don't know the answer to your question, let me get back to you. Let me refer you to someone else. So there's something called the scope of practice. Like I can't treat or diagnose like an illness or anything like that. I've referred people out to physical therapists or chiropractors because I can't be like, I'm specifically treating your back injury. Like although I have a corrective exercise certification and I can help you move better, I can't be like, we're doing this to achieve this like specific like medical result. If that makes sense. So yeah, I was a little bit like leery of like not having the answers, but like it's cool because it's way more endearing, like just honesty 100% of the time. Like you don't want to BS your way through anything. I think a big red flag, like if you're going to see a health professional, whether it's your doctor, whether it's a nutritionist or a trainer, if they have an answer to everything that you ask, I think that's a big red flag. Nutrition and fitness is extremely individualized. I don't think there's like one size fits all approach to any one specific modality. I do think there's some generalizations which I'll kind of start to get to, and kind of my nutritional kind of philosophies. But in terms of like the schooling, it is super easy to get into and fairly inexpensive. It's an online course for a certified personal trainer. You're looking, depending on the kind of agency that you go through, they're looking at probably anywhere between like $400 and $600, and a couple months of your time, and boom, like you're good to go. That's all you need. Now, you have to do every 2 years. You need to get continuing education credits, which like I'm super glad that's a thing, because you would be surprised at like how many doctors, for example, like I think because of the way the medical system is, like they're so busy, they just don't have time to continue doing research. Like they're so behind the times because, and it's not, I don't think it's necessarily their fault, it's just the way the system has been built. They don't have time to spend even a couple hours a week doing like research and stuff like that. They spend a very little time in like their 8 years of schooling actually learning about nutrition. And that's just the way that it is. I don't think that doctors are malicious. I'm sure some people are. There's bad people, in any industry. But they're trying to do the right thing. They just like don't know any better other than typically refer out to a specialist, take this pharmaceutical. They've got 10 minutes to speak to you. And what I've learned, I'll kind of get back to like why I'm doing this. So in high school, I mean, I was like probably 50, 60 pounds heavier than I am now. I had terrible acne. I had braces. Like everything was all kind of not looking so good for me. And then shortly after that, started experiencing like some pretty bad mental health issues. I had terrible social anxiety. I had just like the worst trouble like speaking with people, friends, family, and then like consequently because of that, like some pretty bad depression set in. And did the whole kind of pharmaceutical route, different antidepressants and stuff like that, some different therapists. I think therapy is fantastic once you find the right one, so that was definitely part of my healing, was finding someone that I felt like actually cared. There's a saying like, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So I like to use that, and I'm gonna ramble a little bit, guys. This is kind of, I don't like to have like a set, because I'm just vibing right now. So with like training clients, I like to say like people hire someone for personal training, and you could give someone the best workout program and the best nutrition, but like if they don't think you actually care, if they don't like spending time with you, if you don't like spending time with them, like I said, like you need to like people to do this job, I think, well, because you're on 100% of the time. Like you have to be, like if you're having a bad day or whatever, like let your client, let your client know, be like, hey, I'm just like not, bringing 100% today, something's kind of going on, just kind of let them know that. But what I've noticed myself is like, I don't want to overload my plate. And going back to the salary thing, like you have the capability of making tons of money and working 16 hours a day in a gym if you really, really wanted to. I recognize that I do not want to do that, because although I will be potentially making an impact on greater amount of people, I'm not able to give 100% to each of those people, because I'll just be physically and mentally drained. So finding out that balance, I think, is really important. There's tons of other ways. If this is something that you want to do, there's so many other opportunities for other income avenues, writing books, podcasts, all like that's, I think, really good. Creating programs that you can sell online, modules and stuff like that, like recording yourself doing exercise demos and stuff like that. So like in that regard, you could theoretically get away with not doing any in-person stuff for a long period of time, but it is something I recommend doing at least for a little bit. With the past couple of years in COVID and all that stuff, a lot of trainers started to go online virtually, but I think the ones that are going to have greatest success with that will have had at least some in-person experience, because I do virtual health coaching consultations, sit down on Zoom or whatever, and talking back and forth, deep dive conversations. But in order to like train someone, just looking at like a 2D screen and like not being able to kind of get a 3D perspective and look at their form and all that stuff, I think that's a little bit lacking virtually, although it is an option, and people like, there's people out there making millions and millions of dollars doing it, some unethically. So there was a recent lawsuit where, I think this was in the States, where this trainer, she had like thousands of clients, and she was just literally like giving out the same workout program to literally every single one of her clients. Didn't matter if there was a 75-year-old person or like a young teen athlete or something like that. Like everyone got the same, because she just got so overwhelmed, and eventually they found out, she was sued and all that, and which is good, because I think a lot of personal trainers have a bad name. You go into a big box gym and you'll have like the trainer who's like leaning up against the wall, and he's got his coffee in one hand and like his phone in the other, and he's like, one more rep, and like that's what people think personal trainers are, and a lot of them are like that. I try to differentiate myself, and I think I'm doing a good job with that. So that's kind of how, to kind of get into it. Like I said, certification wise, super easy. I don't want to impress that like, I'll take the easy way out, do a quick $500 course and like away you go. Like sure, it could be something you guys do for a period of time. Like maybe it's something you try out for a few years and then move on to other things. Like I said, like you guys are young right now. The world is your oyster, so to speak. Like you have so many opportunities to try different things, and this is the time to do it. Like I think just like please don't think that you need to have your life career figured out by the time you're out of high school, because in my personal opinion, you don't. So cost pathway, figuring out job options in the market. Is there like a need for PTs? 100%. I mean, right now the statistic, and I believe this is just in the U.S. It might be North America as a whole, but by I think the next 5 years, 2/3 of people will be overweight, and 1/3 of that population is going to be obese. We have that's the real healthcare crisis that's going on right now. It's funny because when we look back pre-internet days, we thought once the internet was mass available and stuff like that, all our problems are going to be answered. All the information is going to be out there. We're going to know what to do. Everyone's going to be healthy. That's not the case. It's not a lack of information. It's wisdom and how to apply that information. So that's where the health coaching comes in. Like I said, you'll have trainers who, I'll rate your program, I'll count your reps, and away you go. But if they're not giving you tools for things that you can do outside of the 1 to maybe 4 hours a week that client sees you, I don't think that you're doing a good job. You want to give them stretches that they can do. I call it like homework. Like, what's one thing that we're going to work on? Maybe it's getting 15 minutes more sleep. Maybe it's eating 1 healthier meal a day. Maybe it's like getting a little bit more protein. Like, the key, I think, to long-term success is getting that snowball kind of moving in the right direction. It is small steps, just getting it going. I think a lot of people oftentimes think, I like to joke that like being healthy doesn't mean you're eating chicken, broccoli, and rice every single day for the rest of your life. And that's, we look at bodybuilders and they're carrying their Tupperware and they're, sub 8% body fat, and it's what those people won't tell you is that a lot of times on bodybuilding stages, those athletes will have heart attacks, they'll pass out, dehydrated terribly, they have their hormones are in the tank because their body fat is so low. So that's something that getting super low body fat is extremely, extremely dangerous, and that's not something I think that's talked about. And people, we have the mentality that is like the pillar of health, but like it's not. I mean, I don't know if you guys expected me to walk through the door being like 6'4" and have muscles coming out of my eyeballs, but like I don't, clearly. Funny enough, I've actually had clients say, and I think this makes sense looking at it from their perspective, that like trainers that look like that are extremely intimidating, and oftentimes the average general population doesn't actually want to work with them. So at our gym, there's trainers of like all shapes and sizes, and you don't have to be, again, like 7% body fat and whatever to like be a personal trainer. I think you just have to take care of your health, and that looks different. It's not just based on, I think, physicality. We're going to talk a little bit about like mindset and stuff like that. That was kind of the last piece of my puzzle for kind of getting my health in order. But just going back to my mental health and stuff, pharmaceuticals, blah blah blah, wasn't working. So I kind of fell back on like, what did I know, and what was what I like to look into in research, and that was like the human body and what can the human body accomplish. And like, humans are amazing. I mean, I know we're in a Christian school, but I'm a big believer of evolution, and we're the apex predator. We got this way. We're here because we kick butt, seriously, and we're so adaptable. And I recognize that, like, hey, you know what? Probably not eating so great. At this point, I'm in my late teens. I could legally drink alcohol and stuff, and I wasn't taking good care of myself. Wasn't eating well. Wasn't sleeping well. And I just started small. I started with doing some push-ups and sit-ups in my bedroom. I started eating just a little bit healthier. Going down to the Shoppers Drug Mart, taking a couple of supplements, and just getting that ball rolling. I think people think that getting healthy requires like a complete 180, going from like 0 to 100, and it just doesn't work. This is why I hate New Year's resolutions, because people go from 0 to 100. They go from sitting on the couch to wanting to run a 5K or work out 5 days a week, and like, the amount of times I will talk clients out of wanting to, hey, I want to come see you 5 days a week. It's like, cool, what have you been doing for the past 2 years? Oh, not much. It's like, well, no, you're going to come see me maybe twice a week. And maybe a couple months down the road, then you're going to go to 3 times a week. And like, so managing, I think, your expectations, and just like, I use something called the confidence meter whenever I'm trying to get a client to like change a habit. And for example, it's like, again, working out. Say, like, I want to work out 5 days a week. Okay, how confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10 that you can do that for the rest of your life? Work out 5 days a week. I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's like a 2. Okay, well, what about 4 days? Okay, now maybe we're at a 4 or 5. If the answer that they give is less than an 8, 9, or a 10, we're going to drop that recommendation until they know that they can do that successfully. Because building habits is about building rapport with yourself. It's about, because if you set a goal for 5 days a week and you only do 4, most people are not gonna pat themselves on the back for the 4 that they did do. They're gonna beat themselves up for the 1 that they didn't do. And that's what we don't want. It would be much better to set the goal a little lower, not super low, because you don't want to be like kind of condescending towards yourself in that manner. But just finding that perfect balance. And this is with anything. This is with food, with nutrition, with whatever. Again, I kind of know I'm bouncing around here, but so is there a high need for PTs? Absolutely. And there's just, again, so many avenues in which you can do it. There's PTs that do mobile training. They'll take some dumbbells and some bands and drive to people's houses. There's training in the park, training virtually, training in a big box gym, small gym, group class training, like just the health coaching, writing books. Like there's tons of different avenues, and it's really kind of varied in that way. Like I said, easy to find a job. Probably, I think once you get that certification, like I think most big box gyms will understand, like you're not going to have any experience. What else are you going to do other than, you know, to work to get that experience? You know, let you come in, working with a couple clients or something like that, and kind of get your feet under you. A day in the life of a personal trainer. So, I mean, the reason I got into this, like I said, I was like managing health food stores and stuff, and I noticed I was spending a lot of times just talking with customers, doing a deep dive. You know, they'd come in and be like, hey, what supplement is like, hair would be a big one. Like women would always come in and ask, like, what supplements should I take for my hair? Like, should I take biotin, collagen, blah, blah. I'd be like, oh, what's your diet? Like, how are you sleeping? Blah, 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 all this stuff. And I would oftentimes talk them out of buying supplements because I felt that that would be money not well spent if the kind of big rocks are not in place. And then over time, people were just like, why aren't you doing this for yourself? Why are you making $16 an hour being a supervisor or a manager at a health food store? You should be doing this for yourself. I'm like, yeah, I probably should. So that affords me a great deal of flexibility in my hours. I mean, it's great that I live super close to my gym. It's like 15-minute walking distance. So I usually have clients in the morning, clients in the evening. That's usually the way it's going to go, just based on people's work schedules and stuff. You know, so I have a bulk of clients in the morning, in the evening, and at the midday to myself, like do what I need to do. Training clients anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a day. Usually, sometimes some virtual stuff mixed in. I usually leave those for just one day a week, my Wednesdays. Working out, that's part of it too. Like, for a couple reasons. Like I said, it's not necessarily so much about like having a physique, but like you do need to be a bit of a billboard for health. Like, and also I think it's worth you understanding what it takes to put in the effort to work out and, you know, time under the iron and grind against heavy weights and have the discipline to like eat healthy and stuff like that, so that you can better empathize with your clients. So that's something to consider. Like, I think in order to get into this like line of work, I think you should have like a pretty large interest in health and fitness in general. I think that just makes sense. On top of the desire to help other people, that's, I think, first and foremost. This is a good one here about aspects of the job that are rewarding and challenging. So there's so many rewarding aspects. Like I said, like it is. I kind of joke that like I'm like people's like unofficial therapist, because like I said, we're talking about like everything, you name it. I've talked about it, even in health food stores. It's interesting. Like I've worked in other retail environments, but like you'd be surprised at what people come in and share with you, like serious, like medical stuff, and like I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but so yeah, just really being able to make like a positive impact. I got into personal training secondarily to the interest in health and nutrition. I actually started like health coaching, like consultations beforehand, because that's, I think, really where the majority of like my expertise was. But it's all well and good to help someone like recomposition their body, lose some weight, build some muscle, but like it's way better when someone's like, hey, I'm able to like walk up the stairs without pausing to take a breath, or I'm able to like run around with my kids or my grandkids. Hey, my shoulder's not hurting anymore. Hey, I'm waking up out of bed like without pain and stuff like that. And like, I like to say, like it's all well and good to be strong inside of the gym. It's way better to be stronger outside of the gym. And I'll probably tailor that more into like my training philosophy, because like there's a lot of different ways to work out, and I do see a lot of people are overdoing it. That's something I definitely am really trying to get across. But it's super rewarding because you're making an impact in people's lives, and like I do think that is almost a necessary requirement for fulfillment and happiness. I think that's deep down what all humans want, is to feel like we have agency and that we're making an impact in the world. Like I said, when I was young, like I knew I wanted to like save the world, so to speak. At first I thought like environmental biology and like cleaning up like oil spills and save the whales and stuff like that. And like maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe it's, you know, like writing books. Like, there's so many different ways, but I do think that's really important. Challenging. Things that are challenging. When clients don't listen to you, when they show up late and stuff like that, that's minimal. But I like to say, like, to my clients, one that I'm thinking of specifically in mind right now, there's only so much I can do. Once you're not with me for that, again, hour to 4 hours a week, like, outside of that, I can only do my best to kind of, like, positively influence you and, like, set you in the right direction. But, like, I'm not the one that's going to do the stretches outside of the time together. I'm not the one that's, putting the fork to your mouth, so to speak. So I can give someone, like, the best workout program, but if they're not doing, like, the dietary stuff, now I have to understand that is there something I'm doing? Is there a pitfall in how I am coaching this person that's not allowing them to, like, conquer this objective? So common ones are skipping lunch, skipping breakfast, not eating enough food. I'm going to talk about that. I think people are not eating enough, definitely not enough protein. But it's like, well, what can we do? Where's this pitfall happening? Is it a time thing? Do you not have the skills to cook? Maybe we can talk about some recipes. Maybe we can talk about figuring out times for meal prepping and stuff like that. So it's problem solving. I like to say that, like, every client presents their own, like, little puzzle, which I love. It's like everyone's different. Like, every day is different. Every time I'm training someone is different. So there's, like, very little monotony in it, which I think is important. That's something that, like, I recognize that, like, I didn't want to work for someone else. I didn't want to do some kind of monotonous labor job. Not that there's anything wrong with that by any means, but for myself, that wasn't. But I'd say that's the most challenging thing, is that you'll have times where it's like, oh, I want to help this person so bad, and if they don't want to help themselves as much as I want to help them, it's extremely difficult. Now, in saying that, at the beginning, when you don't have the luxury of being able to choose your clients too much, like, you're taking everyone that walks in the door, like, you're going to have those frustrating times. But I'm at the point now where I can be like, hey, we're trying to accomplish this goal. It's not working. Something's going on here. I don't know that, like, maybe I'm not equipped to help you, or maybe you're just at a point where, like, this isn't working. Like, let's kind of discontinue what we're doing here. I'm here if you, like, want to come back, like, whatever. But that's probably the most frustrating thing. Ultimately, maybe we'll start to get into this. If anyone has any questions about the actual, like, ins and outs of PT, maybe we'll get those done. But I'm not here to convince you to become a personal trainer. I'm here to convince you to follow what's going to make you happy and what your passions are. That is number one. That is you. When we start to worry about the salary and the benefits and the convenience and the big one, what are other people going to think? What are my parents going to think? My mom wants me to be a doctor or a lawyer or a tradesperson or whatever, but, like, I want to be a freaking shoe designer or whatever. Like, if that's what's going to make you happy, I think that is the most important thing. One of my favorite entrepreneurs that I follow is a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, and he says, happiness has to be the North Star. That has to be what's guiding you, because if you're happy and fulfilled, you're going to bring that energy into every single interaction. Pay it forward kind of mentality. If you're bringing that energy, then the person that you interact with is feeling better, and then maybe you inspire them to follow their dreams and their passion, and that's all it is. Like, I think people are locked into some things that they don't want to be doing, a lot of times based on, like, what their parents might think about them is a big one. I mean, I definitely took a lot of flack when I dropped out of college. Like, you best believe my mom was not happy about that. Or when I left different management positions at companies, that I was at for, like, 2 years or whatever, and for me, it was always enough that I wasn't happy there and I wasn't fulfilled. But what she couldn't see, she would say, you're giving up or you're flip-flopping or, like, whatever. Now we have a really, solid relationship now. But she understands that it was kind of just a stepping stone to just progression. And that's the thing, like, progress, and this is the same for whether you're trying to, like, change your body or whatever, or career paths. Progress typically isn't linear. There's ups, there's downs, but you just want to look at that kind of upward trajectory and that you're just moving in the right direction. I like to say, like, if you can be 0.1% better than you were yesterday, that's all that matters, honestly. I know it sounds a little hokey, but, like, small steps, like, out of all the freaking personal development books and stuff I read, there's so much overlap between, like, we're going to talk about philosophy a little bit, ancient philosophy and personal development, stuff like that, just small steps. So before I get into kind of my nutritional philosophies and stuff like that, is there any questions revolving around, like, the ins and outs of a personal trainer or stuff like that? No. Cool. This is, although again, I kind of have two ultimate goals. Is one, to inspire, especially youth, to like follow their dreams and their passion. There is also so much misinformation in the health and fitness space, and like you guys know that. You can go online and Google anything, you know, should I eat, should I go vegan, should I not, should I do cardio, should I not, carbs, yes or no, fasting, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, again, probably no one size fits all, but I'm just gonna talk about like what I've noticed, what I've researched, and again, questions. This is, I'm here to dispel misinformation and kind of shake up the fitness space. There's gonna be some things that I say that might sound crazy. By all means, like, ask me, like, where are you getting that from? Like, what can you back that up? I'm happy to mention books, podcasts, like whatever. But it's really easy to make money in the fitness space. It's easy to be a fitness influencer on Instagram selling body wraps and skinny teas. And I saw the other day now there's like this like Chinese herb thing you stick in your belly button and it makes you, no. There are no quick fixes. I promise you, there are no quick fixes. In my 7 years of working at health food stores, I have easily spent probably over $15,000 on supplements. Most of them are a waste of money, okay? Every testosterone booster, fat burner, multivitamin, herb, Ayurvedic medicine, whatever, like, I've tried it all. Some of them definitely have value, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that. But supplements are like, I would say less than 5% of your overall health. I remember the first health food store I worked at, and I was doing all this research and I'm spending all this money, and the girl I worked with, she's like, Tyler, why don't you just eat better food? I'm like, no, I want to try this because this sounds cool, this is going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And like, I wish I listened to her, because it's about getting the 4 pillars, like the big rocks, in place. So I'll start with talking about like whole foods. What does that mean? There's this big fear of like processed foods and stuff like that. Like, how do we define a processed food? Basically, every food that you buy in a grocery store is in some way processed, right? What we're talking about avoiding is like hyper-processed foods. I don't think they're all bad, you know, but I like to follow like the 80-20 rule. You know, if 80% of your diet is coming from whole foods, like single ingredient foods, whether it's somewhat processed, like you buy, you know, a piece of meat at the grocery store, yes, it's only one ingredient, but it's, you know, it's been processed, it's in a package, whatever. That's like, I think, really should be the basis. I know it's like self-evident, like obviously, but again, like when I'm working with people, I never start with removing stuff. Like, people think like a trainer or a coach or whatever is gonna like kick in your door and rip open your cupboards and throw all the cookies in a garbage can. And like, again, there's people that do that, but in my experience, that doesn't work. Rather, what can we do to get the body working for you rather than against you? Your body wants to be healthy. It wants to heal. We just need to give it the tools to do so. So I'm going to talk about like nutrient density a little bit as well. But we want to replete the body with nutrients first. There are so many freaking nutrient deficiencies right now. Magnesium's a big one, vitamin D, zinc, copper's another one. Depending on a person's diet, and again, I'm not here to tell anyone how they should eat. I have vegetarian clients, some, you know, ethical or religious reasons. That's, you know, that's totally cool. But nutrient density, what does that mean? We know, we all have heard like, oh, a chocolate bar is like empty calories. Like, what does that really mean? It means calories that are also not paired with nutrients. Micronutrients being like vitamins and minerals. I would also consider protein being like one of those nutrients as well, which people are also critically under eating. What are the most nutrient dense foods? This is inarguable, I believe. Those foods are animal products. So I am a big believer that, I unfortunately don't have the time to get into like the ethical, environmental and stuff reasons. I have to get some literature that I could recommend to people, but I think that there is this big push for people to avoid animal foods, to avoid protein. Thankfully, we're starting to change a little bit from like the 90s, the low fat craze. Everything was low fat, avoid fat, don't eat eggs, don't eat cholesterol, don't eat red meat. That's still like pushed a little bit, but the data just doesn't support that. So we want, in my opinion, to focus on animal foods to get those nutrients in. For the reason being that there are nutrients that only exist in animal foods that do not exist in plants, period. B12 is one that people are most familiar with, heme iron, carnitine, carnosine, taurine, some other ones. Plant foods are critically low in zinc, they don't have cholesterol. Cholesterol is something people are still like a little bit afraid of, good, bad cholesterol. There's really not good and bad cholesterol, or good or bad cholesterol, you require both of them. But you need cholesterol to manufacture any hormone in your body. Every single hormone has a backbone of cholesterol, so whether that's the sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen, progesterone, insulin, ghrelin, leptin, whatever it is, like you need cholesterol. And again, yes, your body can manufacture cholesterol, but it's a little bit like metabolically expensive for it to do so. So dietary cholesterol, the intake of eating foods with cholesterol, actually doesn't have that big of an effect on your body's levels of cholesterol, because your liver just starts manufacturing less cholesterol if you're intaking it. I wish I could go through everything, but so that's where I kind of start. And again, I have vegetarian clients. Yes, you can, I think, structure a healthy vegetarian diet. I do think a healthy vegan diet is pretty darn hard to do without supplementation, without a lot of supplementation. Again, that's fasting. So this is a big one. Like, I definitely have done like way too much fasting in my kind of food journey. I've done everything from what we call 16-8, which is like 16 hours of fasting every day and like an 8-hour eating window, one meal a day, which for me was like the worst. Which is, it's just ridiculous when you think about it. Like, let's fast for 22 hours and then try to get all of your calories in like one meal, like over the course of like say 2 hours, something like that. Like, good luck. It can be useful, but like, I think it's advertised as like this magic bullet. There's some magic about it, like blah blah blah. Like, no, all diets will work if you stick to them, but compliance is like the main thing. I like to say like compliance is the science, which is why there's no one size fits all. Keto might work for someone because they find it super easy to adhere to. They love eating these high fat foods, but for some people, like, carbs are dope and like I want to eat a bunch of carbs. Like, that can work. Like, I promise you, it can work. People ask me like, oh, Tyler, you talk so much about protein, which I'm going to get to in a second. But like, what about carbs and fats? Like, should I have low carb, low fat? I'm like, try them out. See, there's healthy carbs, and this is going to get a little bit nitpicky here. I think sugar, the demonization of sugar is kind of the latest demonization fad. I think our body knows what to do with glucose and fructose. We've been, utilizing them for millions of years, but the thing with the processed foods is what else are these processed foods ingredients? What ingredients these processed foods have? And I don't think it's the sugar that's the problem. Might not even be the gluten. That's another big thing. I think that's valuable to experiment with, but the big thing, I don't like to put foods in a good or bad category because I don't think that's beneficial. I think it can create like a bad relationship with food when we start thinking of this like on the wagon, off the wagon mentality. Like I said, 80-20 rule. I cook 95+% of my meals at home, but I also, if I want to have some pizza or some ice cream or whatever, like I will, because quality of life has to be part of the equation. Trust me, I've tried to be 100% perfect on my diet. It's super boring. I remember in my late teens, like, my friends would invite me out for like chicken wings and beers and stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna come, but I'm gonna have a salad and a water, and it's like eventually those friends stop inviting you out because like you're just a stick in the mud, and it's like you're super boring, right? And also you kind of inherently make them feel a little bit bad because like, oh, is Tyler judging me for like eating my chicken wings? Like, no, like, so do not aim for 100% perfection. I think it's a losing proposition. But so the main thing I think that we should avoid, and again, there's so much conclusive data to prove this, is unhealthy fats. Now, when I say that, most people are going to think animal fats. Most people are going to think saturated fats. I am here to argue that we should actually be avoiding seed oils. Now, they're advertised as being vegetable oils, they're not from vegetables. It's not like they're broccoli oil or carrot oil or something like that. They're from seeds. So canola, soybean, sunflower, safflower, the things that are extremely cheap to make and produce, and are in basically every single packaged food that's out there. In order, I like to look at it this way. Evolutionarily, ancestrally speaking, if you took an olive and squeezed it, you would get some oil out of it. If you took a handful of corn kernels or sunflower seeds, like, good luck trying to get oil out of that. It requires tons of industrial processing, bleaching, deodorizing. Now, when we look at like the structural makeup of fats, so saturated fats are saturated with hydrogen, and they're very stable. This is why cooking with like coconut oil, for example, which is very high, it's basically pure saturated fat, superheat stable. Animal fats, contrary to belief, are typically not just one. No fat is just either saturated, monounsaturated, or polyunsaturated. There's a mix of all of them. Animal fats are going to vary based on what they've been fed. Did you have a question, Mike?
Yeah, what does fish oil do?
Yeah.
People take it and I think really good.
Great question. Okay, so fish oil is something I've changed my mind on recently. It is something I used to think that everybody should be taking because, again, there's so much data surrounding it, like positive data. But fish oil is an omega-3. There's omega-3, 6, 9, 7. Those are polyunsaturated fatty acids. Very unstable and prone to oxidation. When we think oxidation, think like rust on a car. I think it's like the best way to describe it. Very easily damaged by heat and light. I think humans, we are a little bit audacious in thinking that we can isolate and extract things and pop pills and take things. Like, I think eating fish is great. I think fish, seafood, healthy choices. But when we like extract something and put it in a capsule, like as soon as that's out of its kind of whole food matrix, easily damaged. So it's benefits usually purported, I would say, brain health. You do require omega-3s, 100%. Your brain, there's EPA and DHA. DHA is a bit more of like the structural omega-3. A large portion of your brain's mass and fat is DHA. So 100% you need DHA. Should we get it from fish oil? I think we can get adequate amounts from fish. And I think what a lot of these like positive studies for fish oil show is that it's actually more about balancing your ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s. So when I talk about those seed oils, those are primarily omega-6, alpha-linolenic acid. And not that that is bad, we do need those omega-6s, but the ratio in today's day and age is like, I think it's over 20 to 1 in terms of in favoring omega-6 to omega-3s. Ancestrally, it was probably more closer to 2 or 3 to 1. So we're having like exponentially more omega-6. So I think a lot of people who see benefit from taking fish oil supplements are more displacing the ratio of omega-3s in their body and getting some more, like getting consequently a ratio of less omega-6s once they start to bump with those omega-3s. But at a certain point, I think you're going to stop seeing benefit. Like there's people out there mega dosing with fish oil. I don't think it's worth it. And then also too, like these supplements cost money, which is a finite resource for a lot of people. Like you're probably better off maybe spending that money on better quality food. Again, maybe like wild caught, ethically caught fish rather than a supplement version. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. Like it can be good. I mean, it thins your blood. It's good for like the cardiovascular system and stuff like that. But like again, if those big rocks are in place and you're eating healthy and you're sleeping well and you're exercising appropriately, will you see benefit from omega-3s? Possibly, but I think probably not. And you might be better off eating seafood like a couple times a week. Yeah. On that note, just really quickly, like against the plant and animal foods. So like 2 examples I like to give of like we're told. We can get enough omega-3s from eating, say, like chia seeds and flax seeds and stuff like that. But again, that is ALA, that alpha-linolenic acid, which then has to be converted through enzymes in our body into EPA and DHA. But unfortunately, humans do a terrible job of that conversion. It's, I believe, less than 10% of that consumed ALA gets converted into EPA and DHA. So this is the thing. On paper, just because you put something in your mouth is not a guarantee that it's getting into your cells and actually utilizing it. Like we talk about bioavailability, and foods have different ratios of like bioavailability. So you're, in my opinion, better off consuming the EPA and DHA directly from fish. Now it also exists in algae. So some like vegan, you can get like you can eat like seaweed, or you can take like algae supplements and stuff like that. But again, ethically and stuff like that, like I think if we can get past that, eating fish is probably the better option. The other best example of that is beta carotene. So we're told eat carrots for your eyesight, they're good for your eyesight. Beta carotene is not actually vitamin A, it's a vitamin A precursor. It needs to be converted into retinoic acid, which is activated vitamin A, turns into retinol, which humans use. Vitamin A, retinol, is what's going to help your eyesight and your immune system, skin health, a whole bunch of that stuff. But again, unfortunately, humans do a terrible job of this conversion. Again, I believe it's less than 10% conversion, right? So what foods does retinol, vitamin A exist in? It's only animal foods. So that's another example of something only a nutrient that only exists in animal foods. Beef liver. There's people like, yeah, I'm not gonna eat liver. Thankfully, you can buy like freeze-dried or desiccated liver supplements. If we look at cultures across the world, we would eat animals in a what we call a nose to tail manner. Like nothing goes to waste. You eat the organs, the bones, all that stuff, the connective tissue, like all of it. It doesn't go to waste because food would be scarce. We wouldn't. So eating organs I think is important, or just take an organ supplement. Like I get it. I have tons of clients who are like, I don't care how good you tell me organs are. Like I'm not going to eat it. I grew up eating liver. I think it's delicious personally.
Are you just putting fish in animal?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. It doesn't have to be like terrestrial animals. Fish for sure, yes. In terms of like the difference, like people are like white meat, red meat, like avoid red meat because of the saturated fat and it's bad for your heart, blah blah blah. Again, I'm not seeing any conclusive data to show that. Going back to those fats, so red meat animals, ruminant animals, grazing animals, so whether that's cows, bison, water buffalo, goats, camels, whatever, they have this really cool ability because they are ruminants and have multi-chambered stomachs versus monogastric animals. So we're monogastric, we have one stomach. Pigs and chickens are the same. These ruminant animals have the unique ability to, despite the fats that they eat, so unfortunately, conventionally raised cattle, just to be clear too, like I am in no way supporting factory farming or conventional animal feeding operations. Like we should be eating ethically, whether that's plants or animal foods, like locally sourced, all that stuff. I think that hopefully that goes without question. Like I'm not. I think our food system's really messed up, and that is a huge deep topic. But ruminant animals have the unique ability, although they are fed a lot of corn and wheat and soy and stuff like that, that are high omega-6. Through their bacterial fermentation, they're able to turn those unhealthy polyunsaturated, again I shouldn't say unhealthy, but in the context that the ratio is so high, omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids into healthier saturated fatty acids. So we are the foods that we consume. The fats that you eat become the fats that you make your cells out of, the proteins that you eat, all that stuff. So I think that's important to consider. For now, at this point, I've always felt that it was like self-evident, but like looking back on it, especially with like my mental health and stuff like that, there was no talk that food had absolutely any impact on my mental health. Not one medical doctor, family doctor, psychiatrist, whatever was like, what kind of foods are you eating? It's like, so there is a huge link between mental and physical health. There's some like good evidence to show that like brain inflammation is a big part of like depression and stuff like that. So I just thought, food's energy. Like as long as I'm getting my calories in, like I'm probably good to go. And like that's just not the case. I think food is probably the most impactful lever that we can pull. 15-ish minutes left here, and I'm not going to get through anything. Again, carbs, they work for some people, not for others. I don't think they're worth being afraid of. Like overall, energy balance, calories in, calories out is what matters. But like focus on protein. If there's one thing I want you guys to like take away from your food wise, focus on protein, whether that's plant or animal protein. Like people are not eating enough protein, especially women. The statistic is, I'm going to answer your question in just a second. Average woman is eating like, adult woman is eating like 60 grams of protein, which is like incredibly low. I want to see like closer to at least 100 grams of protein, like maybe like 120, depending. It all depends on body weight and stuff like that. Yeah, what was your question?
Well, I was just gonna ask, what do you think about protein bars and like protein bars?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that they are useful tools. It is not where I would start. I recommend them and utilize them in a couple of instances. Either at the beginning of the day when I'm in a rush, I haven't planned and I want to get some protein in, or at the end of the day when I know I haven't eaten enough whole foods protein and I don't want to have a heavy meal or something before bed because that might impede my digestion and my sleep consequently. So don't rely on it, but like, do I use protein powder? Absolutely. But it's more of a kind of backup option. In terms of like the quality of the protein and stuff, like yeah, it's definitely there. Like you take a good, again, there's good like vegan options and stuff like that, but like you can get good ethically sourced like whey protein or something like that. Very bioavailable, very easily utilized. So no worries in that regard. I just think that one, it's not satiating enough. It's not gonna fill you up as much. Any liquid calories, because there's so many mechanisms that like influence hunger. There's called chemoreceptors on your stomach. There's like leptin and ghrelin. There's so much to it. So because people are not, I'm gonna try to get to like eating enough calories. A lot of people aren't eating enough, and like protein powder is about the leanest source of protein that you can get. So I wouldn't start there, but definitely can be useful. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Sweet. Yeah.
For you, what do you believe is the like most effective protein powder to get what you need in?
Yep.
And how do you choose it to make sure that there is actually the
Yeah.
protein?
Amazing question. Yeah, you know what? Let's do Q&A mostly. If you guys have questions, I only have about 10 minutes left. I'm not going to get through all this, which is totally cool. So ultimately, like, what is protein? It is a makeup of different amino acids. So when we talk about, so there's essential amino acids, meaning you need to get them from food. Your body cannot manufacture them. There are non-essential amino acids and then conditionally essential amino acids. But again, kind of going back to that like plant and animal food thing, animal protein, whether it's eggs, dairy, meat, fish, whatever, they are all extremely high in those essential amino acids. If you were to look at like a vegan protein powder, for instance, with the exception of pea protein, peas are a complete amino acid profile, but a lot of like rice is not, for instance. So if you look at it like say a vegan protein powder, they're gonna have like rice mixed in with like corn, or maybe still have some pea protein mixed in. So ultimately it's about the amino acid ratio. In terms of quality, like I want to see like limited ingredients. This goes with like everything. I think a really simple way of looking at like processed foods is like if something has 15 ingredients versus 5, probably without getting too deep into it, 5 is probably the better option. So like I have a protein powder at home that's literally like whey protein, raw cacao, which is like chocolate basically, and like cane sugar. It's like 3 ingredients. That's all you functionally need to make a protein, but you'll notice some have like binders and fillers to make them more appetizing and to blend easier and stuff like that. The ones I typically recommend, like there 100% is data to show that a whey protein is more bioavailable than vegan sources of protein. In terms of, again, ethically and stuff like that, I want to see that it's probably from grass-fed cows, you know, on pasture. You'll see advertised as like New Zealand whey. In New Zealand, they just have typically better like farming practices. So I want to see like a New Zealand whey protein generally, but whether, again, vegan or animal source protein, like minimal ingredients. Sweeteners, this is again something I've changed my mind on. We can't trick the body. You'll see so many, whether they are artificial sweeteners in the sense of like aspartame, sucralose, acetylfame, potassium, or these more natural non-nutritive sweeteners like stevia and stuff like that. I actually would rather have someone utilize sugar, whether that's like honey, cane sugar. Again, I don't have enough time to get into it all, but like I don't think sugar is anything to worry about. So there's just some data to show that these like non-nutritive sweeteners really mess with like the signaling and satiety mechanisms of our brain. So minimal ingredients, ideally if it's whey, like grass-fed, New Zealand. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, sweet. Yeah.
Cardio versus strength. Like,
Yeah.
what would you like recommend with
Yeah.
that?
Great question.
Do you like strength?
Yeah. So yeah, maybe I should get more into that. So like, yeah, done there. Okay. Because we only have so many hours in a week, like I'm firmly of the belief that most people do not need to work out more than 2 to 3 times a week. None of this 5, 6 days a week. Maybe like if you're an athlete for sure, but like general population, 2 to 3 hours a week. Now, in saying that, what is the best bang for our buck in terms of that time spent? I don't think it's cardio personally. I'm not saying for a couple reasons. Let's just be straight up here. The majority of people who come to see a personal trainer is mainly for weight loss. Also the same reason people are primarily utilizing cardio. Exercise in and of itself is terrible for weight loss. I know that sounds crazy, but for the hour of time that you spend, whether you're running, swimming, lifting weights, whatever, you're going to burn between 300 and 500 calories at the high end. That is so easily outdone by 2 pieces of pizza. Like it's so right. Strength training, exercise in general, phenomenal for mental health, phenomenal for building skills, phenomenal for building muscle, which I want to talk about the metabolism because I really want to touch on like metabolism is so poorly misunderstood, and we are told just eat less and move more. I'm not saying to avoid cardio, but do it if you enjoy it. Don't run on a treadmill in a freaking fluorescently lit room. But if you like biking or swimming or dancing or playing tennis, like do it because you enjoy it. But don't get it mixed up that it's helping you burn fat. You are much better off increasing your BMR or your basal metabolic rate, which is the majority of your calorie burn. Basically, your BMR is like the total sum of your body's functions. If you were just to lie in bed all day, most people, and this is dependent on height, weight, gender, you're going to burn anywhere between like 1,500 to 1,900 calories a day. That's the most amount of calories out of all of those things, right? So, but that BMR can slow down when you don't have enough muscle and when you don't eat enough food. It's a evolutionary self-defense mechanism. It's not that you have a damaged metabolism. Your metabolism is doing exactly what it should be doing based on the inputs that you give it. If you are not eating enough calories to sustain that BMR plus your activity level, which not only is like exercising and running, but also what we call NEAT or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, things like bouncing your leg and twitching, the thermic effect of food. You have to expend calories to digest food. If you're not reaching that, your body's gonna be like, oh crap, food is scarce, let's slow down that metabolism. So to me, it sounds much more appealing to work on repairing that metabolism and burning more calories at rest rather than focusing on active calorie burn throughout the day. So, and the other thing too is like people sometimes think that like lifting weights isn't helping your cardiovascular fitness. Like absolutely it is. Like we can shorten the rest periods, we can increase the reps, we can have more time under tension. Like I can get you sweating and breathing heavy just with lifting weights. I think exercise should be intentional. I'm not a huge fan of group classes for the reason being that the majority of them, part of the job of a trainer is to give people what they need versus what they want. And unfortunately, what most people view as a successful exercise is if they're dripping buckets of sweat and panting, an endorphin rush. I don't think that's the case. You don't need to like be sweating like crazy or anything to have a successful workout. And you need to be intentional about it. We need to focus on like building muscle. This is another thing too, like fitness marketing, especially towards women, is absolute nonsense. Like light weights, like I just did a consultation with a client the other day. She's like, I think I'm doing well with my fitness. Like I've got like 5 pound, 8 pound, 10 pound dumbbells at home. I'm like, that's it, crap. Like, but it's so common, right? Like with all my clients, about maybe a 50% split between men and women, everywhere from 14-year-olds to 60-year-olds. I do heavy barbell back squats. I train my mom. She's almost 60. We do deadlifts. We do back squats. We do rows. We do bench press. Like outside of hormonal considerations around the menstrual cycle, there is, in my opinion, no reason why a woman should train any differently than a man. Like, we need to be lifting heavy weights. But women are like, I don't want to get bulky. Good luck. I wish it was that easy to lift weights a couple times and wake up looking like Arnold or something like that. Like, it's not going to happen. Muscle is what adds shape to the body. It always blows my mind. A female client come in and be like, I want to lose weight, but I also want to build my butt. And then I'm like, okay, so we'll like increase the calories. And what? And you're telling me to eat more? I'm like, well, how do you expect to build mass? Like, how do you expect to get shape to the body? It's like build muscle. Again, so people are not eating enough. Just like really quickly, people's metabolisms are just jacked right up. Every single client that I've had to work with, literally everyone, and myself included, I've had to do a process of what's called reverse dieting. I don't like dieting as a term, but it's just what it's called, and it's literally what it sounds like. It's slowly increasing your calories. This is not a specific recommendation, but about like 100 extra calories per week to get that metabolism to speed up. And not once have I seen a client gain weight doing this. And that would be like, but they're eating more food, I don't understand. But your metabolism is going to speed up to adapt to that. Yes, you're going to reach a certain point, but I'm of the belief now that anytime we're adding more activity, we also need to be fueling our body more. We need to give it what it needs to do its job. Like, so basically eat more food, eating more protein, do cardio if you like it, but focus on strength training, full body routine. So like, I mean, bro science, bro splits. Like I remember in high school, like, ooh, like, you know, chest and biceps one day and back the other day and leg day. Like that can work if you're willing to work out 5 or 6 days a week, but most people are not. And splits, in my opinion, do not create enough frequency or consistency. Like say you train legs on a Wednesday and then don't train them again until a Wednesday. Like that's not maximizing muscle growth. Instead, if you spend an hour of time and hit every muscle group 3 times a week, I think you're much better off. I mean, the data shows that because again, like I think there's this displacement between like what the scientific community sees in laboratory research and then what actually happens in real life. And like what we need to understand is like human behavior and the psychology and stuff like that like is a huge part of it. Walking is phenomenal for like a million reasons. Mental health is a big one. How often do you need to work out? Like I said, 2 or 3 times a week. Like people are way overdoing it. In our group classes at our gym, which again I should say, the reason I don't teach them is because I think it's incredibly difficult to create a routine that is perfectly appropriate for all those 10 people. What might be like awesome for someone at the end might be the absolute worst thing, and what that person at the end who's in their mind competing with everyone else is going to like overdo it and push themselves because like they're worried that like maybe they don't look super fit or you know Jenny's going to judge me for whatever. Like so one-on-one training, yes, it's more expensive, but like you get like way more, I think, out of it for sure. Is there any other questions before maybe about 5 minutes left and start to wrap up? No? Cool. Sleep. 8 hours? Yes and no. It's different for everyone, but typically between 7 and 9 hours. The percentage of people that can get by with less than 7 hours of sleep is less than 1% of the population. And this is, you can determine this based on your genetics. There's a specific called gene polymorphism. So don't fool yourselves. Like it is in this today's grind, like rise and grind, sleep is for the weak, like mentality. Like people are not sleeping enough, especially youth. Like I know it sucks, but like if you want to excel academically, physically, mentally, socially, whatever, like you need your sleep. I think it just falls to the back burner. Bottom line, like so subjective versus objective. You know, everyone's got an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or whatever. Like how you subjectively feel, I think, is the most important. If you wake up and you're ready to go and you don't have like energy lulls throughout the day, that's probably a good indication that you're sleeping enough. But just based on like what your Apple Watch says, is like, yeah, it's good data, but like I don't think it's the most important thing. Chronotypes, early bird, night owl. Everyone's different. That's something I think you should consider. Like some people are super productive in the evening, and some people are way more productive in the morning. Like everyone's different. So there's that. I just want to wrap this up. Mindset and stress. If there's one thing I think I want to get across is that like the tough times of our lives are what help shape us into the people that we are. You learn more from failure than you ever will from success, right? I think we need to have the mentality, Nelson Mandela says it, I never lose, I either win or I learn. That is the mentality that will make you indestructible. If you take look at the silver linings and a positive spin on the negative things that happen in your life, you're unstoppable. You are unstoppable. And looking back on it, when I was in the, again, anxiety and depression and like some bad times, and I'm not going to go into details, but I never thought I would have the mentality of the fact that I would be thankful for having gone through that, but it has made me more empathetic, more understanding. I found my passion for my career and helping people because of that. Like, so I think, yeah, and then just like growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Like, fixed mindset is things are static. I am born with this intelligent. I am bad at math. I'm good at math. I'm this and that. Geniuses aren't born, they're made. If you put in the work, 10,000 hours theory, you can be good at anything that you want. Now, yes, maybe there's like genetic limitations. Like if you're, I don't know, 4'5", maybe you're not going to be an NBA star, but like you could still be a freaking rocket scientist or a kick-ass musician or like whatever, right? So I fell into the, oh, I suck at math, I'm more of an English person, blah, blah, blah. No, I just didn't try. Like, I didn't try, and it wasn't an interest of mine, and that's okay, but like, I don't want you guys to have like a limited mindset of like, I'm not good at this, I wasn't born to be good at this. Like, practice. You practice, you can be good at anything that you want to do. Stoicism, really quickly. The biggest thing holding people back is fear of what other people think about them. Hands down, without a doubt. This is why public speaking is by far and away the biggest fear. It tops heights, spiders, like everything, right? Stoics look at something called the circle of influence. So there are things that you can and cannot influence. The weather is a perfect example. I'm not going to complain about the weather, the fact that it's raining, because there's nothing I can do about it. And I know that seems like easier said than done, but it takes time and it takes practice. And the biggest one is, I can't influence what you guys think about me, right? There's a saying like, you can't control your reputation, but you can control your character, right? I can control my thoughts, my actions, and the things that I say. I can't control how you or someone else is going to perceive, or your friends are going to perceive, or your parents or whatever. So I'm not going to worry about it. And again, easier said than done. And I'm not trying to get across that like this is something that takes practice. But reading, guys, reading is so powerful. Honestly, like I can't think of a better way to like look at the distilled life of someone's, like all these their lessons and stuff like that, and just like learning from all these great experts and stuff like that. Podcasts, doesn't have to be reading. Podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos, mentors, real life experiences. Surround yourself with people that uplift you and that challenge you. That's something I learned quickly in my early 20s. Is like I had to ditch a group of friends that was like, they're not really going anywhere, and it was hard and it sucked. Thank you guys.